Hey, I'm Meryl Dakin. I'm an engineer at Knock, and today I want to show you how you can connect your segment events to Knock to power your notifications without writing application code. We're going to be using an example app, Collab.io, that is already connected to Segment. It's sending events to Segment whenever someone posts a comment, and what we want to do is connect Knock as a destination for those events so that it can trigger a workflow that will result in a notification. By the end of the video, you'll also learn how to debug your event-driven workflows using the Knock logs. So let's start with the tools we're going to use. Collab.io is our example app, which you can clone from Knock's public GitHub repo to test this out for yourself. I've also got multiple users logged in. This is John Hammond's account, and this is Alan Grant's account, so that we can see when John Hammond makes a comment, Alan Grant can receive a notification. Next, we have our segment account, which is already connected to our Collab.io app. You can see that I've already added Collab.io as a source. Now, if I look in it and see the debugger, I can see a couple of events that have already started coming in here. Lastly, Collab.io has a Knock account. We're going to be connecting this as our segment destination. I've also already identified users from our Collab.io account here, so that when we post a comment, it will be able to find the user from their ID so that it can notify them. To configure Knock as a segment destination, we're going to first add segment as an integration source in Knock. So we'll create a source in here, choose segment, and once we create it, we can see that it comes with two environments, which correspond to the two environments that we have in our Knock account. Today we're going to be working with the development environment, so I'll copy that webhook destination URL. Now we go to segment to add Knock as a destination. I go to Connections, Destinations, Add Destinations, and in this catalog, I'm going to want to choose Webhook as the type of destination that I want. We're choosing Collab.io as the source for this destination, and we can give it whatever name we want. Now we're going to configure our destination. First, let's go to Mappings, and we'll add a new mapping. And this is where we're going to choose what type of events we want to send through, and for this, we just want to send over any type of track events. This asks us to add a test event. We can just load a sample one, which is called example event. And then in the mappings, this is where we're going to add our URL. We're going to send that test event, and it says that we got a positive response, so we'll save it. We want to enable this mapping, and then go back to settings and enable the entire destination. Save changes, and we're done configuring Knock as a destination in segment. To test that this worked, let's go to our event tester. I usually like to remove the timestamp from these so that I can make sure it will show up properly in my logs, and send the segment test event name, test. Now let's go over to Knock and look at our logs. We can find logs for our sources under the Sources tab, and the first thing we see is that we have two unique events that have already come through. The example event from our first test and the segment test event name from our second. Then we can go to the Logs tab to see more data about these. We can see that we got an event payload, and that there are also event actions and workflow run tabs here. There's not going to be anything in here yet because we haven't mapped these events to any workflow triggers. That's what we're going to do next. What we're looking at here is the application code for our example app. There are three things I want to show you, especially if you want to follow along with this app to build out your own segment integration. First, this is how we're building our recipients list. This app has projects who have members, and we're filtering through those members to take out the user ID of the author, and then mapping to get a string of the recipient ID that we'll put in the recipients list. So this is what we want our notifications to go to. The second thing I want you to see is that I've commented out this code that we've already included in this app that is directly talking to Knock to trigger a notification. Instead of directly triggering a notification, what I want to do is send a segment event that will trigger a notification. And last, I want to show you where I'm actually sending that segment event. It's in this analytics track function, and the event is called new comment. So that's the event that I'm expecting to come through on segment when I send it from this example app. I'm also including data for the workflow about the comment, like the body of the comment, and the page name that it was on. And then of course, I'm including my recipients list. When my user, John Hammond, logged in, I sent an identify call to segment so that any event he triggers will have his ID included as the user ID in the raw data of the event. So let's take a look at what that event will look like when he makes a comment. In my Collab app, I'm logged in as John Hammond, who has a user ID of 1, and I will write a comment. Send it over. I'll go check it out in segment. Go to my sources again and my debugger to make sure I got that new comment. I did. Great. I can see my body of my comment, the page name, the recipients, and if I look at the raw data, I can also see the user ID was sent over properly. Since I've already connected this to Knock, I should see this new comment coming through there as well. So let's go look at the logs in sources. And I do see that I've got a new comment event coming through. In my logs, if I refresh, I will see that whole event payload that's come through with the properties and the user ID. What I want to do now is connect this new comment event with our new comment workflow. So the first thing I need to do is create that workflow. We actually have a comment workflow in our template gallery that we can use, so I'll just use this one here. It has a lot of steps that we won't be focusing on today. The one that I want to look at specifically is the in-app feed, which is already set up in Collab.io. To use an event to trigger this workflow, I need to change the trigger type. I can do that on the trigger step itself. Instead of API call, I want this to be triggered by an event, and I can search for the event that I want. Now I want to map my fields from the event that's coming in to this trigger. So recipients I know are coming from my properties in segment, which in Knock we call data. So I'll use data.recipients to identify those. And then if I pop down this advanced fields, I want my actor to be identified using the user ID, like we saw in the raw event payload. I'll save those mappings, commit the whole thing to development. And what should happen now is when I post a comment in Collab.io, it will go from there to segment, to Knock, and trigger this workflow. So let's check that out. Let's go check out our logs again. I can see in my events that my new comment event is connected to my comments workflow. And if I refresh, I can actually see a new comment event came through and that it did have an event action that was successful, that was triggered. And as a result, 4 workflow runs to my recipients. Let's take a closer look at this event action. What we're seeing here is the parameters that came through. So what we were doing when we were configuring this was mapping the event payload to the data that the workflow needed. The actor was John Hammond, who had an ID of 1. The data included the comment, which has the body and page name, and recipients. And the recipients from that data payload got mapped to the recipients portion of the workflow run. So let's see which one of those looked like. We can go back to our other user in Collab.io, Alan Grant, and see that he got a notification. That's not quite what I wanted. So what we're going to do next is look at how we can debug and test these event-driven workflows. I know my event is triggering my workflow, but the result wasn't exactly what I wanted. So let's go look at the template for the in-app feed and see what we can do to fix it. So here I can see that I've got a page name, I've got an actor, I have a body, and I know that in the notification I received there was some missing data. What I can do is actually take a look at the new comment data that's coming in here so that I can match the variables from the event payload to the message body. So instead of page name, what I want is comment.pagename. And instead of body, I want comment.body. Let's save those changes and go back to our workflow builder. So I could go back to my collab.io, post another comment, and have it come all the way through in order for me to test this. But what I can also do is run a test directly from this workflow. So what I can do here is see that my event trigger for my new comment has loaded the latest event, and I can see that the properties that are coming through are the comment with a body and a page name and my recipients. So let's run this test. I've gotten a log. One thing you'll notice was because I didn't remove the timestamp, it has the same timestamp as the event that it brought in. So it's actually going to show up here. And what I can see now is that I've got a successful event action over here. I'll check out my workflow runs and go to Allen Grants. And in my in-app, look at the message. And now it looks like I've got the right data because I have the page name of the comment and the body of the comment. Our event tester can also help if I'm missing data from my event that I need for my workflow. Let's try that out. So in this latest event, I am going to remove the recipients, and I'll also remove the timestamp. I'll run this test, and I can see that something went wrong. Take me to my log, and again, I can see that I've got an event action, but no workflow runs this time. If I check out the event actions, I actually get a really helpful message about what's missing. So it says that I called this workflow without passing in a list of recipients or passed in an empty list, which is true. It didn't get mapped to the recipients for my workflow. You can use the event tester to quickly iterate on your event mappings in the workflow builder so you know you're getting the data you need. And that's all I have today. You can find our example apps, our docs, and our guides all at knock.app, and you can post questions in our Slack community, which you can find a link to on our website as well. Let us know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.